Boy, what a difference a year makes. Last year, Ted had me come here and speak, and I came before you as an outsider to the music industry, as the ancient mariner geek of new media. I talked about bandwidth and compression and how today's bandwidth and today's compression, the only mass entertainment that really makes it through the pipelines is music. And so this was music's year to be center stage. We also talked last year, and I raised a bunch of eyebrows about a topic called data mining. The whole idea of how music is the greatest identifier of lifestyle, and as of last year was an untapped resource for getting consumer information. Well, based on this week's headlines, I guess some people listened real closely to that message. Okay, somebody got it. Anyway, now as the global head of new media for the world's largest standalone music company, I'd like to share with you a different perspective. For the majors and our artists, it's always been about the music, but now it's really about where the music can take us. Shepherding Capitol and Virgin and Priority and Blue Note and EMI's dozens of labels around the world and this rich content into this new world is fairly daunting. Yet the most challenging task is standing here at another gathering of internet and music folks and trying with something new to say that hasn't been said over and over and over. So at the dawn of the new millennium, what I decided to do today is I'd like to finally, permanently bury and lay waste to 10 myths of music on the internet. Bear with me, heavy metaphor coming. So as one of the 5 titans of content, I'd like to leave Mount Olympus and present to you, my fellow geeks, the 10 myths of themusical.com. Yes, Geek Mythology 1999. You laugh at this. If this is so silly, why do all of you quote Jupiter in predicting the future and trust your sites to Oracle? Okay? Top 10 on the geek list. The borderless world has arrived. Oh yes, the internet goes everywhere, and if you've seen my travel schedule, so do I. But the geopolitical nation state does not disappear overnight. Just because bits and bytes can get there, folks, the law trails technology by 10 to 15 to 20 years. Yes, Bhutan finally got TV and the internet in the same year. This is good. Now yak farmers can watch Baywatch and go to the website. But what we're really talking about that's really making the map of the future difficult today is when you look at performing rights societies, when you look at sub-publishers, government-mandated mechanicals, expiring copyrights. You even have countries today that have no copyright law. Yes, I wrote yesterday in Nigeria. So ponder this, you all-knowing digerati, my fellow citizens of the web. If a Greek downloads a song published by a German publisher of a French writer and covered by a Brazilian band performing live in a concert here in Hollywood at the House of Blues from a British website on a server in the Bahamas using a Japanese bank credit card on his Nokia cell phone while visiting Hong Kong, where did the sale take place? Who pays the value-added tax? Whose mechanicals do you do? Under what governing law? Was it a performance or a recording, depending on your time zone, because you downloaded it tomorrow? And as far as I'm concerned, who gets the money? To illustrate this, the only graphic I could come up with involved Plato and one of his young students. But on a positive note, I won't show it. What I will tell you is the politicians are pretty smart, even if they didn't actually invent the internet. Last year, hey, I've been doing it 21 years. Last year, 132 countries joined the US in saying, hey, we're not going to tax the internet until 2001, after the presidential elections, and the tax man shall cometh. And I can tell you by some of the laws floating around in some of the countries, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it is not going to die quickly, and there are some real serious issues. When you look at the positive side of the map, there's a whole bunch of positive ways to look at this. Let's talk about expats. No show of hands, because I can't see anything. But how many of you weren't born here in LA or in this country? This market, I said don't show hands, I can't see. If you take stuff, let's say Arab repertoire, go into Westwood, go in your local warehouse, you're not going to find a lot. We happen to control about 90% of the world's Arab repertoire, Turkish repertoire, Saudi, North African, French Arab. Yet for all those expats, now they can go on the web. So there's a new way to tap and expand local repertoire everywhere. If you can figure out who gets paid and how. And yet, oh ye ethnocentric Americans, 91% of all websites are still in English only. So you not only have to love music, you want to find your local music, but you need to learn a foreign language to get it. It's a problem. The other thing that's interesting is 66% of all music being sold is local. It's no longer the days of the old A&R, the Anglo-American, let's, sign them up in London or sign them up in LA and ship them anywhere. It's now top acts are coming from anywhere and selling everywhere. You have non-geocentric dance music, jazz, things that are trans-border. In August, for the first time since I've been alive, which is a long time, there was not a British band on the US charts. Not one. It only lasted a week, thank God. And if you look at our company with labels in 60 countries, our #1 selling artist this year is a 17-year-old girl. And no, she didn't need to get implants. Our 17-year-old girl sold 8.3 million albums just in Japan. Her name's Utada. She was thinking going to college. Thank God she's going back to the recording studio. No, she's doing both. And as my map showed earlier, there's a pirate ship on there. The real issue is still piracy on the high seas, not the downloading issue. More downloads took place in this country than anywhere else in the world, and yet this is the only country that saw substantial growth in market share and market size this year. The real issue are those nation states who have factories knocking out millions and millions of CDs that cost the industry far more than any illegal downloading. Tell you how bad it is, we're the only major with a label in India. India is a challenging market. 800 million people, one radio station, it doesn't play music. Largest chain, 2 stalls. I don't make this stuff up. But in talking with our head of our Indian label, let me just share you his most vexing problem. He recently pressed a run of the CD, 100,000 copies. He got 150,000 copies back in returns. He couldn't tell which were which, so next time he's going to press less and use the extra for inventory. Myth number 9. See, it's not the same old stuff you stand through. The internet is a threat to the music industry. God, am I sick of this one. Folks, anybody that figured out how to gather 163 million consumers in one place, this is a good thing. From my perspective, that's over 300 million ears. I went to public school, you do the math. How do we know it's a good thing? When you take your typical bricks and mortar store, 6,000 to 8,000 SKUs. A Virgin Mega giant big box store, 40,000 SKUs. Amazon, 180,000 SKUs. What retailer has sold more different titles in 1999 than any chain? Amazon. That's why we sold to them directly, to learn the data, to share, to figure out what was going on. And what do we learn? Folks, if you're selling titles that nobody's stocking, that's called incremental revenue. This is a good thing. It also means back catalog, always available. And the funny thing about back catalog, artists, whether they like to admit it or not, are human. That means occasionally they get in trouble, they do behind the music, they expire. This is good for sales. I'm joking. But seriously, they don't tend to tell us in advance when these things happen, and getting it through distribution is a tough thing, so the net's always there. We're really talking about, for every artist, total global distribution, which means more artists can make their living creating art, which is why we all got in this business to begin with. It is about the music. It's not about bits and bytes. And best of all, it means nothing ever has to go out of print. So let's bury that myth. Next myth. This is more inside the industry than to the rest of you. The album is sacred. Well, folks, little secret, don't let it leave the room. The album was not divined by God. It was actually created by EMI 102 years ago when we were the gramophone company, and that's how much stuff fit on the disc. Isn't it amazing that when we went to vinyl and it held 40-something minutes, the album was 40-something minutes. When a CD comes along, the album is 70 minutes. A couple artists think it's 79 and 20 seconds. But realistically, technology made the recording music industry. Before there was live performance and humming. That was about it. Technology is not a threat. It gives birth to new and expanded markets. So if the album isn't the only way, I mean, look at this one lonely little word in the middle of that screen. But if we make a pyramid and we put personalization up at the top and broadcast down at the bottom, you suddenly see the album fits just about the middle. There's a whole bunch of new products. Getting smaller, you can make a custom compilation where you pick what you want on your album. You can do pay-per-views of videos. By the time you've discovered an artist, there's a backlog of videos that you'd like to see and hopefully buy. You can go down to the single. For those of us that have gray hair and can remember, the 45 was a good thing. Singles drove album sales. With the internet, we can bring back a singles market, and we at EMI will be doing that in the first quarter of next year, digitally releasing almost all singles. When you go larger than an album, you have stuff like custom radio. The one piece of information that no radio survey can tell a radio station is, what's the song that made you hit the other button? Now you can do that. In comes a song that you don't like, boom. We're doing next year in model cars, you're going to have internet radio where you can subscribe in your lease, commercial free, and all Beatles and all British Invasion, all jazz, all gospel, whatever it is that you want. Those same stations can go to cell phones, can go to watches, can go to your phones. You can get video channels, you can get a broader digital radio, and you can get out to regular radio. If we twist the pyramid and we add the dimension of time, the fourth dimension, you now have another way to sell stuff. You can buy a single to play it once, to own it for a week, to have it disappear when the physical product comes out, whatever. Subscription models. Instead of looking at what do you price the CD for, let's start looking at the consumer as a relationship and how much music would they like to have. Coke figured this out. The more touch points you have to their product, put the vending machine in the cafeteria, in the Blockbuster, in the gas station, the more soda you consume. 7 sodas a day per average American is not enough. They're figuring out new places. We would like a soundtrack to our lives, and this allows us to do it. You can also turn the pyramid another way. I couldn't figure out how to draw another way. But consumer electronics devices. You pay one price for a film in the theater, a different price on a DVD, a different price on a VHS. You pay for it on cable, on pay-per-view. You have it on broadcast. And then cruise ships and prisons, where we all end up. Music can do the same thing. We can package music differently for different devices and different ways to enjoy it. So what this really means, and what most of you are engaged in, is tons and tons of different businesses, different technologies, and different ways of doing this. Well, I am here to tell you what exactly is going to work and make money. No one knows. Forget Jupiter reports. You want to have fun? Take anyone, Forrester, Jupiter, anyone. Go back a year or two and read one of those reports and see how well were they predicting the year 2000. What you don't know is what consumers will accept. And consumers are a very interesting bunch. They're always smarter than you want to give them credit for. So here's where I get to play like I'm in the music business. Mergers and acquisitions is my A&R lineup. The goal is to try all the things that we think consumers will like. And remember, consumers aren't one base. We not only have different cultures for music, we have different cultures for things. The idea of an Amazon where you go on a website and something comes mail order to you in Italy today is fantasy land. The culture says if you order it, the mailman shall get it. You won't get it, the mailman shall. So e-commerce there is you order on the net and you go to your retailer to pick it up. So it's an advanced pickup system. So anyway, we're looking at mergers and acquisitions as a way to help and work with you to leverage our content, shut off the phone, to leverage our content to try to go ahead and jumpstart some of these things and see what'll fly, what works. Let's work at it together. We try to back the winners, accelerate consolidation, something I'll talk about a little bit later, and own the railroad tracks, not just the trains. Because in a few years, you're all going to be coming to conferences talking about how do we get video as the pipes get bigger and compression gets better, and hopefully we'll be there. The next myth, the dot-coms will destroy the majors. I know you guys are rooting for it. In 1999, 162 IPOs in this country created $19.9 billion on paper. If you add in the Amazons and the other ones in this space, we're talking about, I wish I could do Dr. Evil, $100 billion, all to deliver content in a $40 billion industry. So on behalf of the column on the right, it's the same, I couldn't figure that out. On behalf of the column on the right, I want to thank each and every one of you for subsidizing our industry. So what's really going to happen is massive consolidation, and my full-time job is to take money from column A and move some of it to column B. It's a simple job. If you don't think consolidation is going to happen, if you look back in 1996, the top 20 most visited websites on the internet, today, those 20 sites are owned by 6 companies. And the internet consolidation happens much faster than in automotive or in feature films. I mean, 1920s, there were 900 studios. Sooner or later, it consolidates. What doesn't make sense is to have 10,000 different companies that each have one little slice. If you can't keep track of everything, and the press can't keep track of everything, John and Jane Q. Public will stay away in droves. So folks, learn to work together. If you're one of the fortunate that have an amazing market cap, backfill. From my standpoint, content is still king because what it's all about is how to get that music. Myth number 6. Artists don't need record companies. Well, unless Mick and Keith are going to learn to write HTML, got one laugh, they're going to have to pay somebody to provide these services. A lot of people don't understand everything that a record company does. The big expense is the promotion and the development of these artists and the distribution. And in a world of a few thousand radio stations, that is a lot of work. You're now talking about a world with 600 million web pages. There are 17 web pages created every second. Oh, there's another 17. Let's put in perspective, considering that half the world's population has never made a phone call. By the end of this year, there will be more web pages than people. This is mashugana, that's a technical term. So how does an artist rise above that clutter? How do they not only do the promotion, but have the technical infrastructure, the e-commerce engine, the customer support, all of the ways to syndicate their content out there? And again, if you're just talking about an album and selling an album, maybe that's possible, but all these other models, basically, it's to amortize those costs across thousands of acts. Number 5, we're halfway there. You haven't fallen asleep yet, it's early. SDMI will fail. I know you got a panel on this later today. Having sat through a good chunk of the meetings, you have 170 companies with 170 of the brightest people I've ever been in a room with. It's kind of like a model UN. Everybody has a different perspective, but they got to make it work. And just like the three-headed dog Cerebus who guarded the gates of hell, it's a three-headed dog with a lot of brains and a good solid bite. And basically, it's the RIAA, the content, the IT guys, and the consumer electronics guys. Why do they all stay at the table? Well, the CE guys learned a lesson on a thing called DVD. Great technology. I made a DVD disc back in 1996. What took it so long to come out? Each year the studio said, we'll get to it next year. Till you do this and the other thing, you're not getting movies. Without content, there's not a mass market. No one ever bought a box, a computer, anything to just buy a box. They bought it to do something. And the do something is content. And the reason why you need content is so there's a stable market. We all benefit from that. We're all working on it. I'll give you an interesting story. There was a reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times that did something that I wish any journalist here would please do. He decided after years of writing about MP3 and about everything going on, he was actually going to download a song because his girlfriend wanted the song Beautiful Stranger from Madonna. 8 hours later, of going through endless dead loops and this or that and the whole 9 yards. He finally got it and he realized he could have drove down to the store, bought it, got back, and had more time left. So SDMI will work. They've got a great map. It makes sense, and it benefits everybody. A stable retail environment benefits all, including and especially the consumer. Here's my personal favorite myth. This one is for all the investment bankers out there. Digital distribution is more profitable. You don't have those trucks, you don't have those factories, you don't press those discs. Unbelievable, isn't that great? Well, folks, I refer to this as the phantom margin. Bankers, baby bells, VCs, lend me your ears. Digital distribution isn't cheaper, it's a Trojan horse. When you look at the savings on the ethereal product, don't forget to put in the carrier fees, the IT fees, and the Achilles heel of all software, tech support. We just did an experiment with the David Bowie album download, first major album for sale. 24% of the people required tech support. This was not high, but this is a high cost of doing business. Digital goods have stowed away inside that Trojan horse a number of new people that would like to get paid. The encoding companies, the encryption, the data warehousing, the carrier charges, the throughput charges, the rights management systems, the e-commerce engines, the 7x24 manpower staff that keeps it going, security, the whole 9 yards. There is a reason why AOL, the granddaddy of all the .coms and of the ether world, there's a reason why they print and mail out millions of CDs. It's cheap. CDs are really cheap. The real cost of music is producing it and marketing it, not the plastic. And what amazed me with this phantom margin is here's how the world looked at it. Banks looked at this and said, ooh, we're going to take that margin and charge more for credit card processing fees. Telcos said, hey, we'll be the music portal and we'll just charge more for the bits going through. I'm here to tell you that one of the largest accounting firms recently pitched me with the way that they were going to charge more on the back end because of this margin, and there is no new margin. Broadband won't hit for years. This is Mount Vesuvius for those that didn't take history. Broadband is a backhoe problem. Backhoe's a big yellow truck that has to dig up the streets and do all that. But I believe this is a major year for broadband, and not just in the US, but globally. But most of you are looking for in the wrong place. It will not be in the bedroom, it will not be in the den, it will not be in the living room. It will be in retail. Retail is a perfect place for broadband delivery. They can afford it, they can aggregate the content. There's a reason why the majors go to retail. Right now, walking into retail, 22% of consumers, according to the RIAA, don't find the CD that they're looking for. So why not put in a kiosk that manufactures the stuff just in time? So every title's there, even with the printed book. This popped out of a kiosk. This is a Culture Club CD. All the graphics, all the text, everything. In those cultures where you want to touch a kiosk, put in the front. In the other cultures, I call it the 5 triple E shoe. You put in the back room, the person says, do you have Slim Whitman's greatest hits? Fun moment, you go in the back room, 5 minutes later, go, here it is. So broadband is here, it's going to hit a lot faster, and the thing that will make it hit, you finally get to see the future, folks, is these little things called flash RAM. This one, talking about anywhere up to a gigabyte, 1 little gigabyte, 130 albums. Okay, we can do it the Hollywood style. Okay. I need the laughs, folks. Why is flash RAM so important? Because now there's a reason why you pay the same or more. You prefer to get your content digitally because this allows you to take your whole record collection, stick in your headset when you're jogging, stick in your car stereo, stick in your watch, stick it anywhere you want, as long as you pay for it. And the same little flash RAM will go in the back of cameras, will go in your laptops. The whole world's storage is going to become very, very cheap, very transportable. Think of this as those like Vons, cards. I mean, we're all going to have all kinds of stuff. This is a great way. And finally, I think this year at CES and for Christmas 2000, you will see the internet appliances that don't involve a computer. You'll see a brave new world. And, with SDMI, you'll see some great technologies. I didn't make a slide for it, but I just want to touch on one of the other myths. Couldn't come up with graphics that were good for a thing, but MP3 is not more popular than sex. I don't know where that one comes from. If it is for you, you got a problem. The reason why it's the most popular word on search engines, bear with me here, we live in an educated society. We can think of 30 words for sex. There's about 30 of them that make the top 100 most searched words, and about one for MP3. So that's why the actual word sex doesn't end up at the top of the list. People have realized when you search the word for sex, you get 64 million sites, and most of us can set our sites a little more specific. Myth number 2. My son made this graphic, so enjoy it. Consumers won't pay for digital product. This one amazes me. Over 1 billion songs have been downloaded since January. That says market demand. The fans have spoken. The fans will jump through hoops to get these things. If I told you each song was 10 cents, would people pay for it? Absolutely. If I told you it was $10, probably not. Somewhere in between there is one hell of a market, and this is just at the beginning. So we need micropayments. We need those internet devices. We need the flash RAM. We need the portable stuff. We need soft bundles. Buy the hardware. Go to the site and pick the album of your choice. We just announced that we're doing that for this Christmas with a PC manufacturer. Great idea. Nike. I mean, forget the Palm Pilot, the watch. Nike has a tennis shoe computer coming out. Doesn't need batteries. Every time you step with your heel, it powers it. So these are the types of things coming out. In Scandinavia, the most fascinating device that I came across is a business that you should have invented 10 years ago. You walk up to a Coke machine, you take out your cell phone, you type in the number, and out comes a Diet Coke. And you say, okay, so they use the billing system of the phone. They don't put the money in. Big fucking deal. Here's the point that you're missing. Your phone is now a unique payment device. That means now your phone company is in competition with the banking industry. Anytime you got two 800-pound gorillas fighting over turf, there's a space for an entrepreneur to make a killing. So there is a market, and if you don't think consumers are willing to pay, last year, Americans spent $7.1 billion on the net, and global online spending is estimated this year at $226 billion. I think they can afford to have a little music in their lives. Number 1 myth. I do a drum roll, but I'm not a musician. Bricks and mortar will crash and burn. Don't get it? Just like Icarus and Daedalus, who crashed and burned when they flew too close to the sun, everybody figured it's going to go away. Some studios had the hubris to think that they could even compete with them, even though it's 98% of where sales take place. I'm the most ardent advocate of what's going on the internet, and I'm here to tell you, physical goods for the foreseeable future, the next 5 years, the next decade, will be the vast majority of sales. It'll be 85 or 90%. Most of the other things are incremental growth things, and retail will be the place. Retail serves a function. Retail is where we can put in those kiosks. Retail is where you can do the flash RAM and have the high-speed connectivity. Retail can aggregate everybody's content, but two things retailers had to learn. The first one was about the web and your traditional bricks and mortar retailer. Of the top 50 music retailers in the United States, all 50 are now clicks and mortar retailers, having both e-commerce and physical goods. One of the things that they learned from the experiment on the Bowie album, we're now doing the Beastie greatest hits, where you can go to any retailer and make your version of the greatest hits, which tracks you want on the 2 CD set, is many of these retailers learned that having the chairman's nephew's college roommate running their e-business is like setting up in Times Square without a cash register, and they're catching up. The other thing that they have to learn is something that the Luddite in my household, my wife, taught me. My wife's not a nerd, that's my half of the family, but I dumped out her wallet recently, and she had more local merchant continuity cards, 10th pantyhose free, 10th sandwich, 10th dog wash, 10th car wash, more of these little things. When was the last time you saw an effective continuity program at an e-tailer? Most of them came from nerd space or some other space, but didn't work in the mom and pop retail. There's an education that has to take place. the e-tailer has to come up with the value to bring you back. A guy named Smith set up the American Airlines Citibank frequent flyer mile card, the most successful continuity program ever. Go back a generation, gold bond stamps invented by Carlson. These were all things that bought loyalty and need to go. What we need to do as record companies is support retail, and the way to do this is right now we spend millions of dollars printing posters each year. Why do we do this? To help retail merchandise our product. In the e-tailing space, we need to create the templates, the contents, the various things to also help them retail our materials. So, what did I really come here to say today? I don't know. I just hope that we don't have to see these same myths all through the press this year. I mean, thank God we got over the one, don't use your credit card on the web. You know, billions have gone on, and there's less fraud in that than handing it to the waiter. But the one thing that I really realized, and the thing that attracted me to get into the music business, is that it is the center of the universe right now. It is a great place. We're here to work with all of you. We're here to learn together. No one has the answers. If you do, you're far smarter than me. And for those that had to learn Latin, I'd like to end with this great Latin quote. And for those that didn't, give what thou commandest and command what thou wilt, thou imposest. Content is king. I thank you, and I hope we have time for some questions.
I'd like you to follow up a little bit on that little thing you dropped about you're selling all your singles digitally.
Oh, you noticed that. The question was to follow up on digital singles. Yeah, one of the things that we've decided, and the word all is one that I would never use, is a priority for us at EMI and our labels is to help foster a singles market. In many countries, we still have a vibrant singles market, the UK especially. UK, it's a little different because we actually get paid when music plays on the radio. What a concept, it's our music. In this country, we don't. So what we're trying to do is develop a singles market because single sales drive album sales. They don't cannibalize it. There's enough case history to that. And so you'll see us coming out with some rights management systems, some various announcements over the next month or so that will set the stage. And we've been working hand in hand with retailers to set up the tools and the systems in the back end so that each one doesn't have to be first, that they have to jump through hoops to try to do. You know, the first left-handed musician to download a song on a Tuesday through more than 6 retailers named Fred. The press isn't writing about it anymore. It's not a press ploy. It's a legitimate market, and we think there's enough market demand. 1 billion songs downloaded can't be wrong. In the back.
Yes, hi. You were talking about hidden costs as it goes to the consumer, but I'm curious as to how you're going to deal with issues like packaging deductions as they reflect on the artist's income.
As far as what, the payment scales and those things?
Yes, I mean, how are you going to justify taking 25% of the packaging deduction in the artist's contract when it relates to digital downloads?
Great question. Not my department. I mean, I think what you basically have is that all contracts evolve as technology. When we signed Enrico Caruso, it was a 1-page letter. When was the last time you saw an artist agreement? So things work out hand in hand. There are other costs and there's new costs, and figure it out.
Question.
Hi, I'm from LatinNoise.com. My question is, when are you gonna provide your music online for, like, I'm a CD store online, right? Are we gonna be able to get your music and license it and then have it available for customers to buy through the internet? And when will you have that?
Let me change the word license for a second.
Okay.
The only way that we've made any of our digital content, for example, the Bowie album, was through retail. So that's e-tail, physical retail, makes no difference to us, and we'll continue to do this. The singles market will be the same way. You won't be going to EMI.com to get our acts. You won't be going to Virgin.com. You'll be going to your local retailer, to their shopping cart. You'll get it in the format that you choose until SDMI works out things. We'll work with formats that make the music sound good and protect our artists. I mean, we use Liquid Audio and Microsoft for a reason. they sound good. The artist thought that they sounded good. The artist was involved in listening to the compressed files. It's about quality music. It's not about, you know, whatever.
Other
Behind you,
questions?
Ted.
Okay.
How are people going to find all the back catalog music?
There's a tremendous opportunity for clever entrepreneurs to go and specialize. I mean, look at the brilliant job that Rhino did. Rhino started as a physical bricks and mortar store back when I was in college, taking obscure things that no one remembered. Then they repressed them and licensed them, and they built a market. There is so much great content that hasn't found its exact level of a market because the old physical world couldn't reach it all, that I think there's great opportunities. It's about the marketing.
I have a question. You mentioned that in this country, record companies don't get paid when their product plays on the radio. When you consider that hearing songs on the radio is still the primary way that people discover new music, wouldn't you consider the obvious promotional value to be payment in kind?
Well, obviously that was the decision that was made back in 70 years ago, and that was the decision that was made 20 years ago when a cable station said, hey, we'll play your videos for free. You know, don't look at us. But you now have some stations, we're the world's largest music publisher. We have a station in New York that we just polled that more than half of all their content is just us. That station makes millions and millions and millions of dollars. Other countries, the performer and the songwriter, all those years in this country when you heard Sinatra sing, Sinatra didn't get a penny for any of that music being played on the radio. The songwriter did, but the performer didn't. That doesn't seem fair.
Other questions?
Woman in the back.
I've been watching with interest what you've been doing with Liquid Audio and Music Maker, committing to those technologies in exchange for getting a piece of the company. And I'm wondering, have you found that, have you found that you've been losing flexibility by locking into technology that way?
I don't think we've locked into anything. We haven't picked a single technology that's an exclusive technology that's locking us in any way. Quite the opposite. I think by showing that we would get our content out there and work with those that respect it, that others that were planning maybe not to come up with rights management systems and not to care about might have changed some of their position and might now be coming out with things that make a little bit more sense. Our goal is to try to figure out a way to work. It's up to the consumers to choose how they'd like to receive stuff, and we're trying every way to make our content available in ways that they can do. My goal is to provide a soundtrack to people's lives, allow them to have more music and a better quality of life because of it.
In the back. Hold on one second.
Hi Jay, Jason K. Nice to see you again. There were two things in your slide that I thought were particularly interesting and I thought were potentially in conflict. That was that you feel that SDMI is going to succeed, but you mentioned that about 24% of your David Bowie users needed technical support. Don't you suspect that the raft of standards and possibilities for electronic devices are going to cause a greater need for tech support and significantly higher costs with SDMI?
No. Next question. No. If you get back to when I first got in this business and created the first Laserdisc and a bunch of stuff, I used to have a wall that I called the wall of shame in my office of all these things that looked like a CD but were different incompatible formats. CDI, CD-TV, CD plus G, red book, orange book, pink book. Unbelievable stuff. Before you had Windows as a dominant, non-monopolistic operating system, you had 3 different systems, 4 different systems. It was impossible. People didn't know what to buy. They couldn't buy software as gifts. When you had standards, when you had one thing, the reason why you know how to use a new Windows application is Microsoft makes them all work about the same, so you know what the gray box means to click and this and that. We need some consolidation, some simplicity. You can't have endless myriad of choices, each with 6 songs that you can choose from. That's not a market. And it won't be a mass market until you amass into a few major players. And a roll-up will happen, or several roll-ups.
Jay, are you doing anything proactively to streamline that consumer experience? I mean, having just gone through the David Bowie experience where there was...
Yeah, I mean, we learned a lot from it. I mean, part of it is there's several constituencies that have to learn. Okay, the tech companies have to learn things, the retailers have to learn something, the record companies. I mean, the Madison project was a great project for getting the 5 majors to wake up and go, holy moly, it takes a lot of work to make a digital album in the back end and all the various pieces. And so we're working, and what we're trying to do as a company is support those players and those pieces that we think make sense. And as far as the investment strategy with that, is if I can find a company that's, you know, worth Lake Erie and we can put our content in and help grow them and put them with other partners and make them worth the Pacific Ocean, we should get some of that upside. That's a fair exchange.
But is it going to take the equivalent of a one-click to make this work?
I'd love it. I mean, every time we try to design everything, from back when I did the first ATMs and stuff, we always go back and you pick up that telephone and you realize what a telephone can do and how simple that interface is. You know, you can call London, you can call your grandma, I mean, it's amazing what you can do, and yet nothing else approximates that. Radio is pretty darn simple. Some of the internet appliances will be push technologies. So music that pushes to you. I don't believe everybody wants to come home after a hard day of work and sit with some type of screen with 9,000 things and here's my playlist for Saturday. That's counterintuitive. The two things that work on the internet, things that make your life easier and things that play to obsessive compulsive behavior. Those are your two secrets.
That explains it, okay.
Shopping, auctions, sex, and fandom.
Does ADD play a role in that?
What'd you say?
ADD.
What'd you say?
Never.
Do I have the most fun job in the world? In the back.
Hi, you said that the album is not sacred from the perspective of the record company, but how about from the perspective of the consumer? I mean, when you have a 4-digit serial number white album, that's a prized possession.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, that's sacred. The Wall, that's sacred, okay? There's sacred albums. There's also, every once in a while, don't know how it happens, an album comes out that happens to have one good song on it, and some other stuff, okay? That might not be so sacred. The bottom line is, there are artists out there, especially if you talk about hip-hop, there are topical artists that could release a song a week. But if you waited until they had 14 songs, some of that stuff might not be as topical. If you ever go to the Capitol Steps, that's an example of artists that do topical stuff. So there's other metaphors than just the album. I'm not saying the album's dead. I didn't say bury the album. I just said it isn't sacred. It isn't, you know, it isn't this virgin that shouldn't be touched and should be just put in, you know, a shrine. Please buy many of them. Buy more.
Someone got a great final question that you've been dying to have answered.
I guess I'm curious to know if EMI has plans to sell downloadable music that's more than just what would be available traditionally. So I've got this vision as a music fan. It'd be great for a record to come out by my favorite artist, and I could go to the store or download the album and hear those tracks. But also, if I'm willing to pay more, pay the difference between $15 for the new record, but pay 50 cents or $1 for every additional track that I want, so I could hear all that sort of box set type stuff, rehearsals, outtakes, live tracks, demos.
Realistically, again, record companies don't make music. Artists make music. So it's really fundamentally an artist issue. There's some artists who would not, you know, nobody pays, or a lot of people don't want to go to rehearsal of an actor, a Broadway play. They want to give their best performance. So the behind the scenes stuff, you know, but there's other people, there's artists that every time they go in to make that album, they got this many songs because they're just amazingly gifted and only this much fit on there. And that stuff never gets heard from. And those artists would like that out there. And we're working on ways to make that possible. And look for some neat announcements from Virgin. Really, really cutting edge artists and cutting edge label, really pushing the envelope of that. That's what I'm saying. There is no one right way to package this. And what we have to do is stop talking so much. God gave us one mouth and 2 ears. We have to start listening to what are consumers saying. Well, consumers said they wanted a bunch of singles. So we're trying to respond. Consumers can come up with other ideas. Guys, you'll get there first. Entrepreneurship is the R&D of the next millennium. Big companies can't R&D new businesses very quickly. It's much easier for us to overpay and write large checks. But that's basically how companies grow. So let's work in partnership. I thank you for the time, and it's been a lot of fun.